Hey everyone, just wanted to just do an initial video for a new project I'm working on. Um, Something I've been wanting to do for a really long time. I've been into four-wheelers, ATVs since I was probably, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 years old. Started off with dirt bikes, then got into ATVs, been pretty much doing it ever since. Have owned just about every bike that I would want to own. I started out with an LT250R in '86 when I was in high school. Got rid of that. I had a Banshee that was falling apart piece of shit that I never actually got running. Got rid of that. I had a 250R that I had raced once, and someone had broken into my garage and stole it from me after we moved into our new house. And then my first bike that I actually built was a 250X that I bought. Dumped a boatload of money into it. Hated it. Just didn't have the power that I wanted. So that actually got stolen from me too. And then I kind of didn't do anything with ATVs for a while. I was kind of fed up with them. And then maybe 5 or 6 years later, I was out looking to see what was out there. Really wanted another 250R. Couldn't find one. So I was settled for a 1990 Suzuki Quadzilla LT500. Sounded like a good deal. Bike was a piece of shit. Sat out in the rain for years, I guess. It just was falling apart. It was not in good shape. I ended up stripping it down to the frame, completely redid everything, repowder coated everything. The bike was pretty much in excellent condition. Just didn't like it. I trail ride, aggressive trail ride. I just didn't like it. I mean, it was good for straight line power, but you try to get it in the woods, it just rode like shit. It just wasn't something that I cared for. I mean, it was wide, which I like them wide, but yeah, it just wasn't for me. So I found someone on the internet who was, or on Facebook, that was willing to trade pretty much a stock, straight up 250R for this bike. Which I feel kind of bad because it was a stock bike for the most part, and those things are actually worth more than modded bikes. But I pretty much got the bike, stripped it completely down, rebuilt everything, and there's pretty much nothing on that bike that was on it when I got it. Pretty much race ready, even though I don't race. Not much else I could do to it. It's still it's a 4mm stroker motor. It runs great. It was ported by a local guy who used to be big into racing back in the 90s. My wife, or before that bike, I actually had a 400 EX that was pretty much race built except for the suspension on it. That was my bike. My wife had a Warrior. When I got the 250R, I started riding that. She started riding the 400 EX. Got rid of that piece of shit Warrior. God, I hated that bike. But anyways, so I had the 400EX, 250R. I'm getting older. I wanted something that's a little easier to ride, so figured I'll pick up a 4-stroke. A friend of mine had a 05 YFC 450 that was in immaculate condition. I mean, it still has the factory tires on it. It runs. I didn't even run it before I started modding it. I bought it from the guy and the battery was dead. It wouldn't even start. The carburetor needed to be cleaned. Hadn't been running forever. I knew the guy. I knew he took care of his shit, so I went ahead and bought it anyways. Modded the hell out of it to an extent. Pipe, cam mod, carb mod, aftermarket, the power float bowl, power jet. I mean, everything you can pretty much do to it without doing any major motor work. Rode it. First day I went out on it, power was just amazing. I love the power on it. I rode it like it was my race built 250R, and my fault. Didn't dial in the suspension, just got on it, beat the shit out of myself, almost flipped it a couple times. Didn't like it at all. Brought it home, tweaked the stock suspension on it. Doesn't have any extended A-arms or axle or anything. It rides better. I like it. Still not really what I like. So that brings me to this project that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I have the skills to do it. I just really didn't have the the drive to do it, or the time to do it, or the garage space, to be completely honest. So that's why I'm starting this down here in the basement. So I'm going to do a TRX250R CRF450R hybrid. So I wanted to start off cheap because I didn't want to like spend an ungodly amount of money. Like I said, I already have a whole garage full of bikes and I have too much there already. So didn't want to piss off the wife again by saying, hey, look, I got a brand new bike again. So I decided to start slow. Poking around on Facebook Marketplace or Facebook groups, 250R parts. Finally found a frame that was probably too good to be true. The guy only wanted $200 for it. It was about an hour and a half away, so we decided to take a weekend trip. Went and picked it up. I believe it is 87 250R frame. So this is what I ended up getting. Pardon my messy ass basement. I have way too much shit in too small of a space, but that's pretty much me and how I roll. So this is what I ended up getting, just the frame. I paid $200 for it. When I got there, or on my way there, the guy told me, oh yeah, by the way, this frame was modded for a 350X motor. I was like, okay, whatever. Planning on modding it anyways to put a CRF motor in it, so this is what I ended up getting. And as you can see, that's not even close to the stock 250R frame. This hose section here has been replaced. This hose section over here has been replaced. All this, these lower motor mounts were for the 300X motor. If you look up here, this hose support was put in for the 350X motor, sorry. It's not too bad of a job. Some of the welds look kind of farmer welds. Some of them actually look pretty decent. So the more I started looking at it, I realized just a few weeks ago that this is not the stock geometry at all. You can see where this piece of wood is kind of where the stock frame line would go. So I'm not 100% sure on what I want to do with it. If I want to see if I can get the CRF motor in here, with this setup, it may actually let me drop the motor a little bit. So it may not be a big deal. Typically you have to mod the hell out of these frames to get that big of a motor to sit in the frame. Talking to people all the time on some Facebook groups about it. Just kind of gonna play it by ear, see what actually what I end up doing with it. Decided to go with a 06 or newer 450R swing arm. So pretty much everything here is on the rear end so far is 450R. I got an amazing deal on this swing arm. I can't believe how good a shape it was in. So funny story is this little contraption here. I wasn't sure what shock to get. I think a 250R shock will be too long and a 450R shock will probably fit. But for now, I wasn't sure. So I fabbed up this fully adjustable kind of like little strut thingamabobber. Right now it's set at 15 and a quarter inches long, which I believe is the stock 86 450R shock length. So that's so I can at least have a placeholder for this, because I need to start working on the motor mounts, and I really needed to get the swing arm in, get an axle in it, rear sprocket, get everything lined up to see where it fits. I've heard rumors that the motors don't fit over far enough and you have to remove a top frame rail to get the motors in. So I don't know, I'm just gonna kind of see where it goes. First thing I'm gonna do though is I have to cut these stupid ass motor mounts off. I mean, might be great for a 350X motor, but not for this. And then I'm gonna cut this out, which I don't need, and then to try to see how much damage was done to the top of this frame. And then I'll probably start to decide whether or not what I'm gonna do with this. I may quite possibly cut out this whole section from here to here and rebuild it with factory specs, but the more I think about it, I may be able to just drop that motor in there and drop it down at the right height, cut these top motor mounts off, or maybe run a spacer across the bottom for the bottom motor mount. So my ultimate plan is to pick up a 2008 CRF donor bike so I can pull everything off of it I need, except for a rolling chassis, and then sell everything else and just keep what I need for this. But I don't really want to put that kind of money into it right now. I'll probably end up selling the YZ or YFZ to fund the rest of this project. But for now, I started poking around on the internet, around some of the Facebook groups, and I came across this. This is a set of, I believe, 06 or newer cases that were trashed. The guy basically gave them to me, had to pay shipping, which shipping was a lot more than he thought they would be to get them here, which kind of weirded out that it was that much. But yeah, pretty much a set of junk cases. There's some cracks on the inside. So I ended up picking up a used counter shaft, picked up a new sprocket. I have a spacer, bearing, nut washer, and then a spacer on the inside of the cases to completely be able to mock up the drivetrain on this. I found another guy who had this cylinder that was completely junk. I think he charged me 20 bucks to ship it. I mean, look at this head. This head is definitely not usable, but you know what? It gets me to a point to where I can start fabbing up some stuff without having to drop any serious amounts of money on anything right now. So that's my first step. Ended up picking up some more used parts, 450R anti-fade lock nut, Lone Star bearing carrier. That's in actually amazing condition. Managed to pick up an axle that looks like it's pretty much brand new. Picked up a new rear sprocket. So that's where I'm gonna start. Basically get the rear end put together. I got new front swing arm bushing so I can make sure everything's tight and lined up. I got a greasable pivot bolt from, oh God, I can't think of the guy who sells them on Facebook all the time. Oh, Gland Innovations. Hooked me up with one of those. So that seems to work perfect. And then just gonna, I don't know, kind of space or start working on it, start fabbing it out, decide whether or not I want to cut out this mess here and then rebuild it, or just use it, leave it. I mean, some of these welds need to be cleaned up a little bit. I don't really care for that one and some of the other ones on the other side, but to be honest, like, some of these don't really look all that bad. But I'm gonna strip it down. I'll go through and re-weld anything that needs to be welded. I have a decent MIG set up. I also have a TIG set up, so that's not going to be an issue. I will probably custom fab an airbox. I maybe will custom fab a gas tank if I need to. Possibly, I'm gonna do radiator shrouds for sure. I've seen a cool idea on the internet that I liked a couple years ago, but I can't find anyone that makes them anymore. So I'm gonna fab up some of those. I have a small CNC or a pretty decent sized CNC that I built that I can use for machining out any aluminum pieces if I need to. Thin stuff, not any like motor mounts or anything. And planning on picking up a plasma cutter, one, to finish my Jeep project I'm working on, and two, if I need to cut out any pieces for motor mounts for this. I do have the factory motor mounts for the upper head cylinder for this. The lower motor mounts and the front ones. So I'm going to try to stick with as much of the factory CRF stuff. And then I'm basically going to strip this frame down, take off any tab it doesn't need to be on here, get it all repowder coated, looking for some possibly Lone Star A-arms that need to be repowder coated. full gusset kit all the way around just because I can, and start from there. So I decided to sit on this and to not work on it until I had a chance to shoot this video, because I've spent hours and hours of trying to find people doing this same type of conversion on YouTube, and there really isn't. There's a couple, time-lapse videos of Walsh frames, and I'm just not gonna dump 10 grand into this. I mean, it's fun for me. I think I find more enjoyment in building the damn things than riding them. But this is a start of a new project. Hopefully soon, like I said, I'll get these motor mounts cut off, drop the motor in there, kind of see where everything lines up, see how it goes, and just go from there. I will do some more video when I can, but just wanted to start off with this. So thanks a lot for your time. Later.